Hello and welcome to my BCM 325 Better video. In this video, I'll be explaining the progress from my original pitch ideas and exploring what has worked and what hasn't worked for my project so far. In my original BCM 325 pitch video, I pitched the idea to create a 3-part series podcast that explored the topic of automation. Originally, I wanted to focus all 3 episodes only on one case study of Amazon. Each podcast was originally planned to address a different aspect of automation. Initially, I had stated I would be uploading each episode to YouTube to attempt to create interest and a user feedback to my digital artifact. In episode 1, I analysed the current market, looking into what Amazon was currently doing in the field of automation. The first podcast was pitched to be promoted on my Twitter with an online survey for listeners to fill out and provide feedback. Instead, I decided to upload my first episode to Anchor in the hope of receiving feedback from those who were already podcast lovers. In reality, I learned from the first episode that solely posting on Anchor would not provide me with enough feedback to improve my project. Luckily for me, the feedback provided from my peers on my first pitch video gave me enough to make adequate adjustments to the topics of episode 2. In episode 2, it was originally planned to be a summary of automation and discuss the pros and cons and the repercussions of automation within Amazon. From the feedback provided, it was suggested I could improve podcast 2 by looking into the BMW assembly line and use a report to look at the economic effects of automation. I took this feedback on board and this reshaped the conversation of podcast 2. And I believed that this new discussion topic highlighted the social and economic utility of my project. I plan to post this podcast on Reddit and allowed users to go back and listen to the first podcast. But instead, podcast 2 had been uploaded via Anchor and also had been promoted via my Twitter account. Creating and editing episode 2 on Anchor allowed me to experiment with intro and outro sounds and allowed me to segment each part of the podcast instead of one long recording that was episode 1. I found this really interesting and I believe it adds value to the episode, and I'm excited to develop this further in the last episode. At this stage, I'm still planning on episode 3 to focus on a hypothesis of what short, 5 to 10 years, and long-term, 10 to 15 years, effect of automation will have. I will be using Anchor to upload the last podcast, and at this stage, I will post on my Instagram to engage with a new group of users and experiment with the use of hashtags. Once I gather the data received from podcast 2, this will help me determine if this will change. There were 2 main challenges so far in my progress to complete my digital artifact. In episode 1, I received feedback from a listener that I was not utilizing the tool of Anchor. I was naive about the capabilities of this tool. I started to watch YouTube tutorials and finally saw Anchor's potential. This is the main reason for the new edits produced in episode 2. Secondly, a user asked to see episode 1, which I could easily link them to, but it made me think about creating one location for the series so listeners, no matter where they might find one episode, can listen to the series in full. From this, I am now in the process of creating a website as a way to have the podcast series accessible in one location that all viewers can listen to all episodes. At this stage, I'll be using Wix to create this.